And we are back on the record. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again, colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. Good afternoon to the testifier central staff. Okay. I wasn't sure because, there we go. The first thing I wanted to ask, and this is a direct question to the Lieutenant Governor's Office, Attorney Matthew. One of the things that I have been trying to ascertain is the total amount of the unclaimed funds. Do you guys on an annual basis either request of the finance department the total amount of monies that is in the general fund since you guys are in charge of the unclaimed funds, or do they freely provide you with an annual update as to their portion of the money in the general fund?
I'm not aware of us requesting, and I'm not aware of them providing either.
So basically, we really don't know how much unclaimed funds is actually being controlled by the government based on testimony here today. Because even I, as a senator, I'm only hearing from your side for the 15.9 million. I have had a very difficult time trying to get the balance from the finance department. We had a working meeting where we made the request again. So hopefully we'll be able to get a total amount, because based on what is transpiring, it could be 50 million, it could be 20 million, nobody knows. It could be any amount. Nobody seems to be able to want to relay the amount of funding that is in the general fund. And based on how the law is written, the bulk of the money is to be deposited in the general fund. So I am very much concerned as to get this total, because if we're going to be passing this law in order to give people better access, I think it's prudent for us to also know the numbers that we're dealing with. Inspector General Office, Ms. Thomas, how are you?
I'm good.
Earlier when my colleague had asked you about potentially doing a quick audit to get the amount in the general fund, my office did submit a request to your office to assist us because we were having such a cumbersome time in getting information in order to do the people's work. And based on your response, and I just want to, share some excerpts. You did stress, as you may be aware, our office does not currently have an inspector general due to the recent retirement of Mr. Stephen Van Vieberholt. Respectively, pending the appointment of an inspector general, we will have to keep your request on file until the newly appointed IG can address your request on behalf of the Office of the Inspector General. So when you shared with her that you could go ahead and do it, has there been an appointment of an Inspector General, or has your office now been authorized to do things based, explain to me what the difference is then and now?
Delia Thomas. At the time the request came in, it was addressed to the Inspector General.
Okay.
And we were at a particular extremely busy time at the office that we would not have had the staff to even address it.
Okay.
So it's something the office can do,
Okay.
but based on our workload, it was just something that had to be tabled.
So as of this moment, has your workload eased so you could assist us with getting around a lot of this red tape that I seem to be encountering in order to get a total amount of unclaimed funds that is in the general fund?
Well, our workload has alleviated a little.
Uh-huh.
However, the perception that it's going to be easy is just the perception.
Okay.
I will not be able to know whether it will be easy or difficult.
Okay.
I just would say that an audit just encompasses more detailed work,
Okay.
and an inspection would be extremely focused. So the inspection is an easier process.
Okay. Well, one of the things I will say is we do have a budget process. And last year, when I had my extensive exchange with the Lieutenant Governor's office and trying to ascertain this information, one of the things that was expressed to me is that even every time I kept saying, but if this is in the budget, part of your budget, it's in the general fund, it should be accounted for. And I was specifically told that there's nothing in regards to this in the budget. So I am very much concerned and confused that we have a general fund where I, as a senator, is told that there's no main accounting for all of these unclaimed funds in the general fund. And nobody to this date, in over a year, can give me a full accounting, inclusive of the trust fund and the amount in the general fund. So I'm going to say it again. I thank the Lieutenant Governor's office for sharing their portion, but we have no clue what the total amount of this money is. And I don't understand, if we have an accounting system through finance, why is it difficult for me as a senator to request, if you have a ledger or you have a separate account in the general fund, to say that these monies were deposited here because they are unclaimed funds? Why is it so difficult for me to get that number? So I am hoping that at some point we could get a resolution to that. May I ask a question? Because I think they called my time.
Senator, you may proceed to wrap up.
Thank you. One of the things that we had discussed and you had shared earlier in regards to needing additional employees at the Lieutenant Governor's office. I know we're doing a budget hearing, and I'm going to ask you, do you guys plan on requesting additional employees during the budget process to assist with getting quite a bit of this work done? Because it's very concerning, you know, that based on your workload, that the public has not been notified in over 10 years as to unclaimed funds being published. So some of them might not even be aware over the last 10 years that these funds might be sitting there.
Attorney Glendina Matthew, Interim Director. We had a conversation as recent as yesterday with the Director of Business and Financial Management, as well as the Chief of Staff, and they have indicated they will try to seek funding, seek from somewhere, some source of funding to be able to at least get us a position. However, as you know, normally you submit your budget ahead of time, and it did not go in at that time. But they're going to work to see what they can do to get us.
Well, the beauty of coming to the legislature is anything could be amended, okay? And if it's something you need to let us know. But thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the additional time.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome, Senator. I just want to note that the budget time is upon us, and I know the budget call has already been passed for the departments and agencies. What type of salary range were you looking at?
We're looking at maybe at least 45 to 50.
Okay, all right, and that's noted. All right, thank you so much. Colleagues, we have exhausted all of our time on this bill, 34-0212. We're going to take a brief recess, but before we do that, I would like to invite the testifiers to present a 30-second wrap-up on their testimony and their presentation today before our committee. I will first recognize Attorney Glendina Matthew. You're recognized for your 30 seconds wrap-up.
Good afternoon to the listening and viewing audience. We want to thank the legislature for giving us the opportunity to come before you today and provide testimony. And I would be remiss if I did not thank the staff of the Division of Banking, Insurance, and Financial Regulation. Even with the shortage of staff, they continue to do the work of the people. So I must thank them for their continued service. And thank you to the legislature again.
Thank you so much, Attorney Matthew. Ms. Delia Thomas, you're recognized for your 30 seconds wrap up.
Thank you. I do want to reiterate that our office, we stand ready to audit or investigate the programs and operations of this government. I would like to thank the bill sponsor for your request to our office. As I said, we will keep it under advisement. And as soon as we can, the need arise, and we can address that, we will.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thomas. And both Ms. Thomas and Attorney Matthew and representative from the Lieutenant Governor's office, you are hereby released from your testimony today before the Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection. We were going to take a brief recess, but I noted that the sponsor for the next legislation in our block is here and present. Madam Clerk, kindly move forward with reading the next block on our agenda today into the record.
Block 2. The committee will receive testimony concerning Bill Number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to registration of electors to require the supervisor of elections to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2022. This bill is sponsored by Senator Kenneth L. Gittins. The invited testifiers are Ms. Caroline Fox, Supervisor of VI Board of Elections, and Ms. Gwen Marie Mouliner, President of VI League of Women Voters. Madam Chair, this ends the reading of today's agenda.
Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, we will in fact take a break for lunch while we await the other testifiers for Block 2. We have one testifier who will be testifying virtually and another testifier who will be testifying in person. So we will take a 45-minute recess. The Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection stand in recess for 45 minutes. The Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection is back on the record. We have already read into the record Block 2. Who speaks on Bill number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 5, Section 1110, relating to registration of electors to require the supervisor of election to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2020. Who speaks on this bill?
I do.
Senator Gittins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to all. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Bill number 34-0230. Let me just make sure. When is it? Yeah, 0230. This bill, the bill permits, it speaks to, I'm sorry, I have so much papers in front of me. The bill pertains to the registration of electors and to require the supervisor of elections to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2022. This is and should be a function of the supervisor of elections as the CEO of the Office of Elections. A lot of these operational functions are being to the supervisor of elections and away from the board of elections, as you would see in a number of upcoming election reform measures. The purpose of this bill is to actually provide an accurate voting list and provide voting statistics by establishing an active or an inactive voting status for electors rather than electors being just arbitrarily taken out of the election roll. What this also does is it allows the supervisor of elections to examine all registration records and be able to contact electors who had not voted in the last two elections. They will also be notified that their voter registration has been placed on hold in an inactive status for approximately 30 days, giving them time and the opportunity to request that their voter registration be actually reinstated. And anyone who is determined to still be an inactive voter will still be registered to vote, and their registration can be updated by 7 p.m. on election day itself and still be able to receive a ballot. The voter will then be allowed to complete the voting process and have their registration status placed back on active status. This essentially purges the voting system to allow the voter data to be more accurate and give a true picture of what the numbers are of registered voters and gauge the turnout more accurately. I'm urging my colleagues to support the measure as we continue to work toward the election revisions and clean up a number of deficiencies and discrepancies within Title 18 of the Virgin Islands Code, which speaks to our election system. At this time, I'll wait to hear the testimony and look forward to having a good discussion on this matter and move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the testifiers in advance of us moving forward.
Thank you so much, Senator Gittins. We do have two testifiers who are, one is here in the chambers, Ms. Caroline Fox, who's a supervisor of the Virgin Islands election system, as well as Dr. Gwen Marie Molinar, President of the Virgin Islands League of Women Voters, who will be joining us virtually. Pleasant good morning, ladies. Or good afternoon, rather, ladies. Pleasant good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Joseph.
Dr. Molinar, can you also, we just want to make sure everything is operable on your end, the visual and audio. We can see you, so we know the visual is operable. Just on your end with the microphone check, the audio.
Good afternoon, Senator Joseph.
Good
I'm delighted to.
Good afternoon, good. We will begin by receiving the written and prepared testimony by Supervisor Fox. Supervisor Fox, kindly proceed with reading your testimony into the record.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairwoman Carla J. Joseph, distinguished members of the Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection, other members of the 34th Legislature, members of the press, the viewing and listening audience. I am Caroline Fox, Supervisor of Elections. It is an honor to appear before you today to present on Bill number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to the registration of electors to require the Supervisor of Elections to compile an active and inactive voter list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2022. First, we would like to state we support Bill 34-0230 with one recommended amendment, which is a major change for the election system of the Virgin Islands. We would like this law to be enacted 30 days after the governor signs. Our goal is to obtain an accurate voters' participation rate for the 2022 general election, because during the 4-year cycle, which is when the gubernatorial race is on the ballot, more voters participate. The ESVI do not want to see the fruits of our labor in 2024. We have the tools necessary to begin this process, and we can change the status of non-voters in the 2024 through 2020 general elections from active to inactive, beginning 30 days after the passage of this legislation. The statement below explains the process the Office of the Supervisor will conduct. The Supervisor of Election shall cause all registration of electors to be examined, and in the case of each elector who is not recorded as having voted at such election and the last general election prior to the same, the Supervisor of Election shall send to such elector by mail at his address appearing upon his registration card, wherever he is known to reside, a notice setting forth that the records of the Office of the Supervisor indicate he has not voted at last 2 general election and that his registration will be placed inactive at the expiration of 30 days from the date of mailing. Such notice will be filed with the Office of the Supervisor either personally or by mail. This written request for reinstatement of his registration will set forth his place of residence and must be signed by him. At the expiration of the time specified in the notice, the Supervisor of Elections shall place inactive on the registration of such elector unless he has filed with the Office of the Supervisor a signed request for reinstatement of his registration as above provides. The name of any elector whose registration has been changed to inactive shall be posted forthwith territorially in 3 places, such as the United States Post Office, Water and Power Authority Bulletin Board, on the election website, www.vivote.gov, and at any government office where the public has to visit for services. If you are an inactive voter, you are still a registered voter. You can update your registration anytime before 7 p.m. on election day and receive a ballot. Before you may vote, however, you will be required to complete a request for reinstatement form, an affirmation of current and continuous resident as prescribed by the Supervisor of Elections at the voting center. On the request for reinstatement form, you must affirm that you still reside at the address at which you are registered, or an updated current address, or have moved to another district. Your registration status will be returned to active once you complete the voting process. For deceased voters who pass away other than in the Virgin Islands, we may not be aware unless we subscribe to the National Association for Public Health Statistics, an information system, so that we can have access to the electronic verification of vital events. The Bureau of Motor Vehicles subscribes to this so they can verify off-island birth certificates. However, not every state and county participates. We are also looking at the Electronic Registration Information Center, which is ERIC, a nonprofit organization with the sole mission of assisting states to improve the accuracy of America's voting rolls and increase access to voter registration for all eligible citizens. ERIC is governed and managed by states who choose to join and was formed in 2012 with assistance from the Pew Charitable Trust. The 7 states that pioneered that formation of ERIC in 2012 were Colorado, Delaware, Maryland, Nevada, Utah, Virginia, and Washington. As of October 2021, 31 states plus DC are members. We have been discussing ERIC since 2015, but it was cost prohibitive because only about 15 states or territories were members at that time. I recently attended the Florida Supervisor of Elections Conference, where I met one-on-one with one of the principal founders of ERIC. I am awaiting information from this agency to again assess the value added for us in paying an annual fee for this information. Changing from active to inactive will enable us to place those residents whose status is unknown in inactive status. This assists us in maintaining an accurate and current voters database. Statistics are important because today we live in the information world, and much of this information are determined electronically. Assessing and utilizing statistics is a critical asset in decision making, particularly in a time when more data than ever is being produced. For example, current and historical statistics derived from accurate data collection and predictive analytics that applies statistical algorithms and machine learning or artificial intelligence to make predictions about future trends and anticipated outcomes. Historical and statistical data is utilized to determine the number of ballots to order, the number of voting machines to deploy, and the number of voting centers to assign. Though all forecasting efforts are subject to certain limitations, predictive analysis has proven to be a helpful way for decision makers to arrive at truly informed assumptions about future events and trends. This statistical data assists us in planning, preparing and executing a successful election cycle. Now I would like to present these graph depictions to explain how our primary rationale for supporting Bill 2034-0230. The cancellation of purging, well, let me go to the graphs. No, hold on. Is that on? Media need to put up a
Media,
PowerPoint presentation,
could
please.
you pull up the PowerPoint presentation?
It's not much, it's just about 6 slides.
It's on
So-
one screen?
No, it's
it's on the screen.
I got it, so just go forward. So
Okay,
first we
thank you.
I'm trying to share the historical data because pictures are worth 1,000 words. Here we have the registered number of voters of 54,209. The voters that participated in that election was 29,050. So you divide those numbers and you get 54%. Look at it now when you have active versus inactive. Registered voters, 37,650. The same number of voters participated, 29,050. Your percentage over divided the 29,050 by 3760, 77%. Participation rate increases by 23%. History for the years 2010 to now, St. Croix. This was the voter participation. As you can see, once we stop canceling in 2016, you do not have an accurate picture of your number of voters. The voter percentage decreased. So I'll give you a few minutes to look at that. Number of registered voters in blue, number voted in orange, 2010 to 2020. Let's go to St. Croix. Here it is at numbers. First, 2010, 68.90%. 2012, 60%. 2014, 53.89%. 2014, I already done. 16, 45.40%. 18, 51.6%. And 2020, 33.99%. Let's take a look at St. Thomas. 2010. You see the number of registered voters are in gray. The number who voted are in yellow. Few minutes so you can look at those charts. Here is the numbers. 2010, 64.26%. 2014, 2012, 55%. And I'm saying it because we got listening and viewing an audience that might not be able to view. So that's why I'm reading it out, sorry. 2014, 50.88%. 2016, 45.60%. 2018, 51.6%. 2020, 33.99%. That's those highlights on the chart. The cancellation or purging of voter registration database performed for the last time after 2016 general election. Up to that point, the registration database or voter list was current and accurate. Once we stopped the process of cancellation, they left only 2 ways to cancel voters, which is considered minimal. First, receiving the deceased listing quarterly from the Department of Health, or secondly, receiving the felony court orders quarterly from the superior or district courts. The Virgin Island voter participation historically in all prior elections to 2018 has always averaged 60% or higher. Once we stopped canceling, the percentage shrunk to 40% or lower. This data not only affects the statistical reports, but also other laws such as initiative, referendum, or recall, which requires a certain category of voters to initiate, approve, and implement. I would like to share with the example with this legislative body and the viewing and listening audience, which I just did. Sorry, I got ahead of my time there. So that was the list. Using the same numbers, okay, so I'll skip that paragraph which we showed there. Please note the significant difference in the percentage participation, which was a 23% increase. If we utilize the active versus the inactive voters, this percentage is an accurate statistical formula painting a clearer and true picture of our participation rates. The Virgin Islands voter participation turnout percentage has always been higher than the U.S. mainland. We want the registration of voters to continually increase. This process is in no way to decrease our voter registration. Participating in our democracy is critical, free, your rights, and important. Statistical information is critical in many areas, especially in analyzing the election results. Our goal in supporting this bill is to obtain true, accurate statistical information and to inspire, encourage, and energize all our citizens to participate in the electoral process as done in many other countries. Based on our preliminary review of the number of registrants who have not voted in 2014 to 2016, and again, we always look 2 years prior to the election. In the St. Thomas, St. John district, that number is 4,803. And in the St. Croix district, 4,512. The following 4 years projection would be about half the number of voters to revert inactive compared to the 2014-2016 totals. Changing from inactive to active in the registration database is one step after careful and methodically reviewing and verifying each individual voter's history. We then will bulk mail the official notice to the elector letter to every registrant on the inactive list created. The registrant has 30 days to respond to ESVI prior to changing the voting status from active to inactive. I present to you the following example. If Jane Doe was away, returned home the day before the elections, and never received the notice of elector, the 30-day notification letter, on election day, she shows up to the voting center to vote. The election official, the judge, will contact our office and provide her a reinstatement of registration form to complete at the voting site. Copy was attached with my presentation. She will be allowed to cast her ballot. Although this is an apparent seamless process, of course, we must always plan for the 1% error rate, but we will be able to correct the issue. The question you may ask yourselves, how can I avoid having my status changed to inactive? Today, I will share these pointers to ensure you remain current in our voters' registration database. First, check your registration status at least 6 weeks before you go to vote, every time. This gives you enough time to discover any problems with your registration and get them corrected before the voter registration deadline. Number 2, update your voter registration address every time you move. Number 3, ensure your zip code is current since the postal system has updated zip codes over the years. On the voters lookup, you must input your residential zip code. Number 4, vote in every elections. It's like exercise. The more you use that muscle, the stronger it will be. Plus, it's good for democracy. If by chance a voter is on the inactive status, there are ways they can return to active status. First, vote. Going to vote at the voting center to vote on election day will automatically move the status back to active. 2, the elector must complete the notice of elector form sent to you by the Office of the Supervisor, informing them that their status is inactive. By law, if a registration status is transferred to inactive, the Office of the Supervisor is required to mail the affected elector a notification. The notification instructs the voter on what steps to take to avoid being transferred to the inactive status. But this notice may not be received for assorted reasons, especially if the elector has moved and not updated their address. Therefore, on election day, they may find that their names are on the list of inactive voters. The staff and I are excited and ready to implement this process. This module has been part of the registration database from 2006. My goal is to maximize the use of all applicable modules to enhance our election system and provide the voters with a positive, motivational, and memorable experience. The future of ESVI is to implement and utilize new enhanced technology. I would like to take this opportunity to present the next few dates on the 2022 election calendar. 2 days ago, June 14, was the certification of candidates. June 21st, which is next week, Tuesday, all federal ballots to be mailed out to military and overseas personnel, and the deadline for mail-out absentee ballots request. June 30th, campaign disclosure reports are due. July 7th, the last day of registration. July 18th, early voting begins, and the locations are as follows. St. John will be using Julius Sproul Cafeteria. St. Thomas will have 2 sites, Charlotte Amalie High School Gym and Tutu Park Mall, which is next to Champs, and then St. Croix, the St. Croix Elections Office, and the St. Joseph Parish Hall. August 1st, early voting ends. August 6th, Democratic primary election. Please visit our website for additional information and the remaining deadlines on the 2022 elections calendar. The 2022 election, as it is in all elections, will be fair, accessible, transparent, and secure. In conclusion, Chairman Carla Joseph, I thank you, members of the committee, other members of the 34th Legislature, for inviting me to present on Bill number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to the registration of electors to require the Office of the Supervisor to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2022. ESVI will fully support Bill 34-0230 with our recommendation of enactment of this legislation 30 days after the governor's signature. I would like to end with this quote: "We do not have a government by the majority. We have a government by the majority who participate." And that's a quote from Thomas Jefferson, former U.S. president and the founding father of the U.S. I'm prepared to respond to any questions you may have. Your voice is your vote, and your vote is your voice. Voting is the right thing to do. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Supervisor Caroline Fox, for your presentation. The committee would now recognize and hear the testimony.
Point of inquiry. Point of
Yes.
inquiry.
Yes,
Oh.
Senator Gittins, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just a point of inquiry or clarification from the supervisor. I didn't intend to have this discussion, but since she mentioned it, it's a little confusing to me, so I just wanted the clarification for others who might be as well. You stated with regards to those dates, July 18th being the early voting begins. So I'm assuming that that's the first day of all early voting. And then you stated that locations are, and you listed St. John Julius Sprove Cafeteria, St. Thomas, CAHS Gym and Tutu Park Mall, and St. Croix Election Office and St. Joseph Parish Halls. Are you stating that for the entire period of early voting, that these are the areas that individuals can go daily to vote?
That's correct, Senator. 9 to 6 p.m., 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Gittins. Dr. Gwen Marie Molinar, you are recognized to read your testimony into the record.
Great. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Good day to the Honorable Senator Carla Joseph, Chairperson of the Committee on Government Operations and Community and Consumer Protection. Good day to the members of the committee, members of the 34th Legislature present, and persons in the viewing and listening audience. The League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands is very pleased to have been invited to comment on Bill number 34-0230, as it is the mission and raison d'etre of our organization to protect and expand voting rights within our democracy. We work very hard to ensure that everyone is represented in our democracy, and we empower voters through advocacy and education in preparation for the vote. I'm Dr. Gwen Marie Molinar, President of the League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands. Bill number 34-0230 was thoroughly reviewed by our board of directors and interested members. This presentation then represents our collective feedback on the bill. In our discussion, there was much support for this bill as proposed by Senator Kenneth Gittins. We recognize, for example, the importance of being able to verify the number of eligible voters, especially when the percentage of the voters is critical in calculating the success or failure of the vote. We agree, therefore, wholeheartedly with Supervisor Fox with respect to the importance of numbers and the statistics for planning as well as for evaluation. There were, however, a few concerns which we believe need to be addressed.
Dr. Molinar, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Is it possible that you can get closer to the mic? Our stenographer is having a difficult time following your testimony, your verbal testimony. So just get a little closer to the mic and see if you can also speak directly into the mic. Thank you kindly. Okay.
I shall also try to speak slower, which will hopefully will make it easier. Just to reiterate a bit, the League of Women Voters held a number of meetings on the bill, and the board, as well as the membership, provided input. We were very much in support of the bill, and we support also the statements by Supervisor Fawkes with respect to the importance of the statistics. Is this better, Senator?
Much better, much better. Thank you.
Okay. There were, however, a few concerns which we believe need to be addressed to further improve the bill. First, the bill states that a list of inactive voters will be posted in 3 sites, but does not provide information about what or where the sites might be. There was concern in the group that the postings might not be in sufficiently public venues so that people could be adequately informed as to their voting status, although we do recognize that they will be also notified by mail. To correct this, the league suggests that there should be some assurance to the voting public that these notices will be provided in places agreed by most that could reach the majority of the public. Given this concern, the league also suggests that there be a broad educational initiative in the media by the election system to inform the public about what it means to be active versus being inactive. We believe this information should be clear and rather brief in its format. Further, we suggest that an educational postcard be sent to all voters of record, providing them with this information, that is what it means to be active versus inactive, at least once immediately after this bill is passed, and also prior to and during each election cycle. We do have a few questions, however. First, if this bill is passed, what effect, if any, will it have on the passage of initiative and recall measures? Would its passage require a change in the code regarding how these measures are evaluated? Another question, when the bill says that starting with election 2022, does this mean that electors will start counting, the election system will start counting the voting frequencies from 2022 and then look at 2024 and then enact the active and inactive status? Or will you be looking at the previous two general elections to identify who is active versus inactive? So we were asking to have clarification on what it means when you say that you will be starting with the 2022 election. The other question is, if a person can vote on the same day of election up until 7 o'clock, how does the election system verify the accuracy of the statement of affirmation by the voter? And our final question is, we ask, how does the election system confirm that voters who move from one voting district within the territory to the other voting district are dutifully registered to vote in the district? For example, imagine a hypothetical voter who moves from St. John to St. Croix to work for purposes, for work purposes rather, but prefers to continue to vote in the St. Thomas St. John district. How does the election system know of change of residence if not so informed by the voter? Would this be a concern in determining the number of active voters in each district? In many mainland states, a person's driver's license states place of residence, and that information is often utilized by the election system in determining voting places. Could a similar practice, that is collaboration between our Bureau of Motor Vehicles and the election system, be instituted in the Virgin Islands to provide information to the election system in order to verify the district within which voters cast their votes? And I know, I just listening to Supervisor Falk's testimony that you're also considering using ERIC. Maybe that might be the way of making a determination. In summary, we thank the committee for the opportunity to comment on Bill 340230. We believe this to be a very good bill, one that is definitely needed, but we offer some recommendations, particularly with respect to the education of the public, with respect to the bill, and we also raised some related questions. We'd be happy to respond to any comments or questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dr. Molinar. Colleagues, we have this bill before us, and I will proceed with one 5-minute round, and if we need to have another round, we can. So we will begin, of course, with Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. Senator Francis Heiliger, you are recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of the territory, central staff. One of the things that testifier Fox shared had to do with the number and percentages of voters and how this bill might affect, for example, for initiatives. I did pull up out of the Revised Organic Act, and it speaks to, for example, it says at least 10% of the voters of each legislative district, or 41% of all voters of the Virgin Islands, must be submitted to the supervisor of elections. And that's just an excerpt in regards to getting a percentage within the 180-day circulation. With this creating an active and inactive, would it really make a difference if the Revised Organic Act speaks to all, as opposed to active versus inactive?
Senator, again, good afternoon, and thanks for your question. It makes a difference with us doing our voting locally. Again, I said I didn't know clearly what it impacted initiative referendum, but I list them there. We're also talking about updating our Revised Organic Act, so that's something they could look at. But when we do our voting percentage right now, we submit our first request is the number of registered voters. If you look at our election report, it goes with a number of active voters. When I print out a statistical report each month, I print out active voters. So if they're inactive, they won't be shown. Just like if someone has a felony, they're suspended. If someone is 17 and a half, they're not an active voter yet until they turn 18. So these are all drop-down menus on the database. So when we do our certification at the end of the election, it tells you how much voters participated. And that's where this information is critical.
Okay. Economic impact. I know you spoke earlier in regards to this module already existing within the system. So would this have any kind of financial impact on the Board of Elections, or this is something that could be rolled out right away without any issues?
Well, we can roll it out right away without any issues. It's not a financial impact because it's already on the computer system.
Okay.
It's there. Bulk mail, we do bulk mail for elections, so we have that account. So that's the only cost, mailing out the letters.
Do you see that in attempting to do this in future elections, because I'm sure we might not be able to implement some of these things because it's 90 days after, et cetera, but do you think about additional manpower that might be needed at the polls? For example, you might end up with, say, 4,000 people inactive, and then they all show up to vote. And all of a sudden now you have to have these people filling out these forms and just to be able to vote in that election. Do you foresee any future issues in regards to that, or you just think it might be a smooth transition for those that might be inactive when they show up?
Well, you always plan for that 1%, which we said. And again, we've started to talk about this 2 years ago, so this is not new. And historically, usually when voters come off the rolls, many don't return.
Okay.
Whether they cancel, whatever, relocated, or they just don't want to vote anymore. So I don't see it as a huge, you will have some that show up, but it won't be 4,000. And even if they show up, it'll be spread to various voting centers or different dates. So we can handle the workload. Right now, we already started the process. That's why I could tell you the number that can be canceled between 2014 and 2018. All we're waiting for, the click from the governor, and because we want to see the statistics for the gubernatorial election instead of waiting until 2026. That's the issue. Because, people look at statistics, or percentage, where you get your voters from, where area. The voters in this area voted, 30% of them showed up or came out. So this is something that's been talked about for over 2 years.
Okay. Do you think that there would be any issues in regards to laws that are implemented within a 6-month period of an election, trying to get this done, if we get it done within the time period, do you think there would be any kind of adverse effects in getting this accomplished in that time frame after the election? It's some 90 days.
Like I said, Senator, we don't agree with 90 days. We want to enact it 30 days from signing of the governor. So again, because 90 days from 2022, again, you won't see the results of that till the next 2 years for the senatorial election and the delegate, and then 4 years for the gubernatorial. And so you want to see your statistics in the year that's most voters participate.
Time.
Which would be the
This year.
gubernatorial year.
Correct, this year.
Thank you for sharing that. Madam Chair, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Senator Blyden, you are recognized for your point of inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Supervisor Fox, you mentioned that you know the number you're just waiting for whatever to go ahead. What's that number that can be canceled? The number of individuals that you said you know that
In
number.
the testimony, I had 4,000 and change. We looked at 14 and 16. 4,000 is in my testimony
a
on
lot.
page 8. It's a lot, but
That's
we
a
can.
large number.
It is a large number.
I'm concerned with that, but I'll wait till my line of questioning.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
The
Thank you,
numbers
Madam
are
Chair.
on page 8.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Blyden. I do have a follow-up concern. So should this proposed bill be enacted and within 30 days, would that affect the election that's going to be taking place in August in the primary?
No, ma'am.
But it will affect the general.
The statistics will be ready for the general election.
Understood. So that's the time frame you're looking at, the general.
That's correct.
So, and you're looking at the individuals who have not participated in 2 consecutive general elections.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Senator Franklin D. Johnson, you are recognized for your 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the testifiers,
Good afternoon.
testifier, and good afternoon to the listen and viewing audience. In your testimony, you were speaking about having enough paper ballots and purchasing enough. And I can recall in the last general election in the Western District of St. Croix, there wasn't sufficient paper ballot. What will be done differently to make sure that when folks show up to the poll, that they do have these paper ballots?
Senator Johnson, good afternoon, and thanks for the question. What happened that last time, again, we were transitioning to the express vote, and our encouragement was to try to encourage folks to use the express vote, which the activation card is there 24/7. So we tried to do an average percentage based on our list of voters. So we did that amount of paper ballots. We learned from that mistake, or not mistake, but again, projection. And so we've realized that more people want the paper ballots. We were more trying to push the electronic express vote machine. So that's what happened, and we have adjusted since that election.
So I would stand here to say that we shouldn't have that problem again.
We should not have that problem again, Senator.
You spoke about having 2 different sites this time on each island for early voting. Do you have sufficient staff to manage 2 different polling sites on each island for early voting?
Yes, Senator. We do bring in poll workers or part-time persons to manage. So it's not just our staff. We do hire poll workers. That's what we're doing.
Say that again?
We do hire poll workers. That's what we're doing. So when you come to early vote, you notice there were some folks in the conference room that weren't our staff. Our staff does deal with checking in. We do have a new e-poll book, so we can bring on e-poll book workers as temporary help during the early voting.
And help me if I'm right, you said that this active and inactive list will be posted?
Yes, Senator.
And don't you think this will bring some problems to some folks that might have political jobs that are inactive?
Senator, when we canceled back up until 2016, it was the same process. It was posted in WAPA, it was posted in the post office. So it's the same process. And back then, we still had the same political persons were around. So we don't see it as being an issue. Again, we impartial in elections, but again, it's a listing. And 2014 or 2016, some other person may have been deceased. So, we don't know that because they may have deceased in the States. So the list cancellation has always been a public process, and it's a public process. Elections is a public entity.
You also said that you sent an application. I didn't see it. I looked for it. What are some of the questions on that application for when an inactive person reaches to the poll on the day to decide to register to want to vote?
Usually it's just your name, your information, your address, and you take a oath at the bottom swearing and affirm that your residence is still the same. I did send it, I think, when I sent with the first briefing when this was scheduled back in May, and I looked through and I missed it this last time, but it was sent at the first round. But it's just basic information, just like when you come to the polling place and you have to fill out an application for a provisional ballot, you get your name, you get your address, and then you tell us that you swear and affirm that that's your residence.
Does the system have a current process in which it used to purge individuals who have relocated from the Virgin Islands to the mainland from local database?
Presently, when someone goes to the States or anywhere and they sign up to register to vote, that state would send us with an email or in the mail a letter stating that John Doe is registered at this state. Again, there's always a percentage that don't come back. We do the same. If someone comes here from the state to register, we fill out that form and we mail it out to the state that they came from. So that's why I always ask you, where was the last place you were registered? And that's where we do vote with each election entity.
And my other question, why do you think becoming a member of the Electronic Register of Information Center will be beneficial to the voters in the Virgin Islands?
The only thing I see with that, Senator, was the Social Security, because when we tried to get information from Social Security locally here in 2014, they told us they cannot provide us that report. So that is the only thing I see that will value us folks that pass or deceased in the States. Social Security have all that information. Again, it was nearly $20,000 to join this organization, and I didn't think the benefit was worth it at that time based on our budget. And now, again, as more states join, based on your size, that's the annual cost. So if I'm paying $10,000, I might only get 3 persons out of it, said it die in the States, it wasn't worth that money. But I'm waiting to see what the cost would be now. It's 2022.
Time.
Madam Chair, if I may.
You may proceed to wrap up, Senator.
And your numbers, that 4,000 difference on page 8, what do you think actually create that problem or have that big decrease?
Well, Senator, that was 2014 to 2016. Those were the folks that did not vote. Again, some may have relocated, some between HES closure, hurricanes, it varies. And so that's what we're saying. The number is large in the first year because we're going back to 2016. But as you come forward, it would be less. I was saying it would be maybe 50%. Maybe when you look at 2018 and 20, you may be canceling 2,000 persons. So to everybody, this seems like a big number, but we got to look that it's going way back to 2014. And we had a lot of transitions, whether folks left after HES, hurricanes, relocate, died, etc.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis. I want to dive in a little bit with a number. I'm so sorry, Senator Johnson. I want to dive in a little bit with a number that you presented of the amount of persons from the 2014 to 2016 election period who are not registered or have not voted, rather. Is it possible to look at getting a comparison between those who did not vote and also those who voted? Because this statistics you presented is only for those who didn't vote. And what about those who did vote? Do you have that statistics to present?
I do not have that with me, Senator, but that's on our website.
I know it's on your
Each of the
website.
years, I could forward that to the body, but I don't have it with me.
Okay, and also I just wanted to get an impression from you for the actual election year. So that would be 2014, not the whole bulk, because you did a more cumulative for both 2014 and 2016. So if we could break it down to 2014 as well as 2016, that would be very insightful. And you don't have any listing for 2018?
No, because we're coming to present our numbers, and like I said, I think it will reduce each year, because if you take out from the base, that numbers won't be in those years going forward. And
Right.
we don't want to get, I mean, we could look at the numbers and I'll see
Yeah,
what
you
the staff
could,
could
you could look
provide.
at, I know the election system from being a member of the Board of Election, you could actually break it out
Yes, we can.
per election cycle, how many persons did not vote
Correct.
in each election cycle. And I think that would help us to see, is there an upward trend? Is there a little bump here with these years? Because you did mention, as far as a justification, the closure of the refinery in St. Croix, as well as the hurricanes. And hurricanes were 2017.
Yes,
That's
and-
not this time period. And also, we had the closure of the refinery. That was in 2014 thereabout, but then it reopened and then it closed again. So for us to be able to really analyze and dive deeply into the data as presented. Thank you so much. Senator Marvin A. Blyden, you're recognized for your 5 minutes. Please recognize Senator Blyden's mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And good afternoon, Supervisor Fox and Dr. Molinar, and thank you so much for your testimonies.
Good afternoon, Senator.
I believe also in doing an analysis, we also need to include gubernatorial race and non-gubernatorial race, because the numbers are usually lower when it's not a gubernatorial year, election year, in those numbers also. If you look at the chart, you'll notice that also. So I think we need to add that in there also. Now, let me ask you, when it comes to that 4,000 plus individuals, I know Dr. Molinar mentioned some, in her testimony, that she mentioned some basically amendments to the bill. Do you agree? I saw you writing some stuff. Do you agree with any of those suggestions that Dr. Molinar mentioned in her testimony?
Senator, some of them we started to address. I know we had spoken to her, so they gave us the preliminary. I know some of the others, we are hearing them for the first time, so we'll have to look at them. Again, the person changing from one district to another, if you go to a district to work, right now, that's adjusted. You do an absentee in either district. You get the ballot for where your district is, so we don't require you to change to any district. So these are procedures that are already in place that won't impact this. And some other questions that she mentioned. The media educational campaign, of course, I agree with those type things, but the other ones we'll have to research.
What about, I think this is a very important one that she mentioned. Number 2, the educational postcard to be sent to all voters of records, providing them with the information for those that are listening. But I know that might be a problem because, like, as we said, some of them have moved on or probably deceased, etc. So what will that look like, though? Because I do agree with that, because in terms of, I know in the past you have posted in the newspaper, etc. You said a post office, different agencies. I see that being a little intimidating in some aspects. How can you basically make that work to basically accommodate what they're trying to accomplish and what you are trying to accomplish?
I agree with that, Senator. Like I said, postcard in the mail, we do that all the time because some mail come back and we still have to mail them out. So I look at that as a great educational way to get the word out, and it goes to all voters. So of course you'll have a percentage that come back, but I agree with those media educational campaign and then also sending the postcards to the voters.
And she also mentioned a situation where folks come late, say after 5, between 5 and 7, and need to actually present the information, etc. How will that work? in terms of the accuracy of the information, because you won't have any time to check it,
Well,
for instance, with the numbers, with the final numbers, early numbers.
You talking about somebody coming to the voting center to complete the form?
Yes.
So they call our office where the main database is, and all you say is yes, that person is registered or not. That's it. Like I said, they fill out the form right there, and they're eligible to vote. Once you're in the voting center or the polling site, you're eligible to vote. Once the doors close and you're outside, that's different. But once you're inside, they'll give you the opportunity to vote.
And I know numbers matter, statistics is important, but let's turn a page in terms of voters registration and increasing the numbers. And I believe it's important to get voters' participation in terms of getting them to the polls and being involved in the government and taking part, as you say. Once you vote, you make a difference. So, coming from your perspective, what do you think needs to be done in terms of actually getting more voters out, in addition to the candidate themselves to get them out? You know, what from your office, what have you been doing in terms of voters registration and drive and information and education in order to bring people to the polls and get them involved in the government?
Well, I know between the board and the office of the supervisor, we're doing some outreach. But again, we continue to say the same thing. It starts at home, parents, family. It starts at churches. It starts at school. It starts with the political parties doing their part. It's not just the board of election or the supervisor of elections. So it's all of us in the community. So they have to have that interest in government, civics, and understand what election is all about. A lot of them just get the ID card to go to the bank. And so that's something, we've been talking about this for 10 years. And so that's our issue. And that's why a lot of these numbers in our rolls are just folks that wanted to get the ID card and they don't participate in voting. So we just have to continue to educate. We try to do innovative ways. I know the board go out and there's few folks, they had a registration drive this Sunday down at Bodo Park and Bodo Farm, sorry, I'm thinking of the park, Bodo Farm, 3-person registered. And it was well announced, well advertised, and so that's what's happening. And so you only could do so much, but again, parents need to lead the way. I didn't wait for the education or anybody else to tell me. My parents took me to register when I was 18, and I find that it's something I do, and I've done it every year since, because that's what service is about to your community.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Milner, any insights from the League of Urban Voters? Before my time is up, let me hear from you.
May I, Senator Joseph?
No, go ahead. My time is not called.
Yes, you're on Senator Blyden's time. You may proceed, Dr. Molinar.
So very, very happy Senator Blyden asked that question about how we can get the vote out. And I should say that the League of Women Voters has taken that question very, very seriously. We began a process where we are going into the schools once they reopen and the students are back in the classroom, especially the high schools and the vocational schools. We already began with my brother's workshop. We went there and did a fantastic presentation, and the students loved it. They wanted to know how they can sign up. We have a wrapped video we got from the mainland that talks about it's My Vote Don't Count, and it's a real fantastic app, and we want to take that into the schools once the school opens in the fall. I should say, Senator, that what's very interesting is that on the mainland, you know that many states, the League of Women Voters organizations are permitted by their state election system to participate in registration. I know in the Virgin Islands, we have requested registration activities, but we are required by the election system to have a person from the election system present. But in the many states, they are authorized to actually conduct registration and assist, great assistance to the election system. We look forward to the time when Virgin Islands this can also happen. I should say that Supervisor Fawkes has been very accommodating, and but the fact, whenever we want to do a registration, we are always required to have present a member of the system there.
Thank you for your responses. Madam Chair, in closing, I would just like to say civics also plays a great role in terms of educating individuals from a younger age. So I look forward to us having a discussion and bringing forward legislation to assist in that endeavor. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for the time. Thank you for your responses.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you so much, Senator Blyden. Senator Novell Francis Jr., you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the testifiers, President Molinar, as well as Supervisor Fawkes. Thank you for your testimony today, and you seem to all be in support of this measure, and with some tweak, of course, some recommendations for tweaking it. So those will certainly be taken under advisement. Supervisor Fawkes, tell me, this measure seeks to do what?
Good afternoon, Senator. As I was mentioning before, when we do certification, it goes by the number of voters that are on your list, the number of voters that vote in the and it gives you your participation rate. When we used to cancel voters, which was the process up until 2016, you got a true picture of your voter participation. Once we stopped doing that, we only have a total number of voters, some who do not participate, and so your voters' participation rate continues to decrease. The Virgin Islands has always been on the top over the years, over many states, 60% and better. We're striving to get to 70 and striving to get higher. Now we're in the reverse gear.
And in addition to that, I think the bill also speaks to the posting of that information within 90 days after the general election. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And this affords you enough time to be able to make that posting and that comparison, or issue the numbers publicly?
Yes, Senator, that's the system that was there before. So the staff has always done it over the years from the time the election was instituted in the 60s up to 2016. It's similar to the states. So the staff, that's what they look into, and then the board members also come in and they go through the cancellation process, as Senator Joseph mentioned before. So we can accomplish that in 90 days.
And you utilize this data then to do what? How will this information then help you to improve upon your system?
Well, you really have a true number of the number of voters that are registered. You look at percentage when we have to do a ballot calculation, the percentage of turnout, the number of voting sites, it all goes with your numbers. So statistically, you look at that, you're going to say, I'm going to do 40% of that number. But 40% of a number that's not really accurate, you end up overspending sometimes. We end up with ballots that we have to shred every 2 years because we're doing 40% of whatever this number is. And half of that percentage, at least 40% of them, are not registered voters. I mean, not here living and active voters, sorry.
Thank you very much. And President Molinar, I want to also commend the League of Women Voters for your effort to always inform and educate our public. And thank you for all that you do to make that happen. We certainly are going to be missing Ms. Gwen Brady this year because obviously she's no longer around. And I know here in the St. Croix district, she did a lot of that work. But in your recommendation, and I know that there was a lot spoken about in terms of education, how and marketing, I guess, is part of the education process as well. How do you propose that we continue to do that? Because up to, I think it might have been yesterday or the day before, someone asked me whether or not there'll be any early voting and what's the date for the early voting, which means that, again, we kind of missing the bus in terms of making sure that people are properly informed. Any suggestion how we could close that loop?
Yes. I think that we did give the recommendation that immediately after this bill is passed, and I'm listening to the conversation, I'm pretty confident that it will be, that after this bill is passed, that elections sent out notices to all the entire voting public about what it means to be active versus inactive, and that for every single voting cycle, during that cycle, the election system again should send out a postcard informing people about the need to ensure that they are active voters, and if not active, how to rectify that. I noted that Senator, I believe it was Senator Tyler Francis who asked whether the budget needs to be increased for the election system. And perhaps we might want to advise, suggest
Time.
to Supervisor Fawkes that she add in some additional funds for educating the public. I think that was a great question, Senator Francis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can I just wrap up with one final question to?
You may proceed, Senator Francis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Supervisor Fox, in regards to the changing of numbers during the primary and general election, and I know that's been around for quite some time now. Can you remind me, what is the logic behind that? And do you see any movement away from that where you just select one number that will then apply to both the primary and the general election? Can you touch on that real quickly for me, please?
Yes, Senator. Again, based on the law, so the law has cast in a lot in two areas. The reason for that is those that are participating in the general election, they should have a fair chance of getting number one like everybody else. I know there's recommendation that everybody pulls together, but again, you may have some withdrawals, you may have some different things that happen, and then your ballot will not be chronological. I mean, a lot of us run in numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. I am one to say we should get rid of numbers. Most states don't have numbers on the ballots, but everybody wants us to keep these numbers, so you can't have it both ways. But that's what the law says right now, two casting of lot. So again, the senators will have to change the law, and we look at that and go from there. But it's confusing because if you're going to have a number 1, then you're going to have a number 7, because the numbers are in the primary, and then now you come to the general. It's just not chronological.
Very well, thank you. My time has been called. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time. Thank you for your responses. Supervisor Fox, as well as President Molinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Francis. I do have some questions. I recall very vividly my tenure on the Board of Election representing the St. Thomas, St. John district. And I never participated in the cancellation of voters. That was my stance. And my reasoning was once a person comes in and they have registered to vote, they have exercised their constitutional right. And I didn't want to be a party of removing somebody constitutional right because they may have chosen or not to vote as their stance in any given election. And that was their voice, not to actually participate. And that was part of what they chose to do. So I never really, I never supported or participated, I should say, in the cancellation or purging of the voter registration rules while I was there. I wanted to ask you some questions relative to your testimony. You mentioned that the elector, on page 2, you mentioned at the bottom, you mentioned that the elector, unless he has filed with the office of the supervisor, the signed request for reinstatement of his registration as above provides. How many days do they have to file that? Is there a time frame that they must file it so that they can, of course, become re-registered should this bill pass and become enacted?
Yes, Senator, 30 days. They have 30 days to return the document.
And how many days, and you have 30 days to notify them that they are going to be purged. And you also indicated that if they were, they could still provide the documentation at their polling place if they go to vote on that day and get reinstated also.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. Now, what For now, I'm looking at page 4 of your testimony. I believe you spoke about it in a bit. What does it take? What is needed for you to have access to the system that the Bureau of Motor Vehicle subscribe to, so you can actually verify persons' birth certificates and the like?
Well, Senator, our requirements is not to do that. Because Ms. McIntosh is a board member, she mentioned the system that they have. And as they said, not every state is in part of it. So you might not want to join a system. You have to pay maybe to get information from that system. So that might not be good for us. Again, the future we're looking at is tying in with BMV. So if they're doing it already, we'll get that information from them.
Exactly. So I'm looking at that whole transition because I know it's been talked about for a number of years, and I just wanted to find out how close we are to making it a reality and not just a talk.
Well, Senator, it's not a talk. We are very close to making it a reality. We had the entities, ESNS and some Omni Systems already had a meeting with BMV. ESNS is waiting to provide us the quote and what it will cost on our end, and we're ready to implement December, January. We can't do anything between now and November, but it's in the works so we could get the contracts and everything fully up and running by January.
Okay,
it's going
so-
to be implemented.
So you have some timeline now, because I know this has been touted for since maybe 3, 4, even when I was a board member, and I left the board in 2018. So here today, things move very slowly in the Virgin Islands for some reason, but I'm glad to hear that you have a time frame, at least by January 2023,
Yes,
to have
Senator.
it fully implemented. Is that correct,
Yes,
what you're
Senator.
representing here today? My concern relative to the measure, having been a board member, and when you're a board member, you are the front line of implementing the election, correct? The board is who implements the elections. They hire the judges and all of those persons who implement the election. And they go around and they monitor how the election is being conducted. I look at election systems and I'm concerned about any type of election change affecting the voters, because we want to assure that the voters are coming out and they are able to vote and not be disenfranchised, because that could be a total turnoff from somebody who wants to come out and vote. Do you see this legislation impacting adversely any voters coming out to the voting poll? Because it's not everyone who reads the newspaper, goes to WAPA and all of those things. There's some people who just stay at home, they just go from the grocery stores. So the publications and the marketing and the information, should this bill be enacted, has to go out. I'm just concerned about the time frame, knowing that it's an election year. So if you could speak on that and what your methodology and approach will be to assure that those voters who may be impacted by this legislation are not disenfranchised.
Well, Senator, I would say, again, we look at it from the election perspective, being there historically, and a lot of the members have been there for a number of years. And based on experience, I'm saying this is similar to what we did with cancellation. So that process was the same, and you'll have some that impact negatively and some that are positive with it. So in anything we do, you're gonna have some that are not happy with the process. Our goal is, if they're on, and again, the numbers, I looked through the list, and some of those names, some of those persons, is not on the island anymore. But again, you have the percentage that may. So we planned for that. Again, we looked at it. We look at all the data that we have. And we find that we can implement. And we don't see a negative impact on our behalf.
Okay, so you don't see it on your behalf, but what are the impacts on the voter who you are providing the service to? Have you taken that into consideration, perhaps based on past practices of when the voter registration have been canceled? Have you had any dialogue with your judges or even the poll workers relative to how that has impacted them on the election day? Have
Senator-
those conversations occurred?
Well, over the years, we visited polling sites, and you have that percentage, 1 or 2 that have a problem that they didn't find their registration in the system. Persons are human; they get frustrated. You call the office, you solve the problem. Some of them are still unhappy, and you try to, give them the best customer service that you have. So I'm saying, yes, all of that was taken into consideration. Again, this is a project that's from bottom up, because these 4,000 persons, I could tell you, they are not here. 2014 to 2016. They're not here. They're not voting. They're not participating. But we will do our due diligence.
Well, I think you're being very presumptuous if you're saying that they're not
I
here.
am saying they're not here.
Supervisor Fox, that means that you know each one of these persons that you are going to purge, and you can verify that they are not in the Virgin Islands. I don't know if you want to go with that message, but I definitely would prefer to lean on the side that maybe they did not want to vote. Now, my next question would be relative to 2018 voters. You're not taking into consideration those individuals who did not vote in the 2018 election or the 2020s. Only 2014 and 16 you're taking into consideration to look at purging.
We take it into consideration. We start with 20, well, I'll say, no, we're going to 2018. We're looking at up to 2018.
So
Because we want to be
2018
2 years back.
So 2018 general election will be also considered
Yes, Senator.
after you have if this measure passed, you will also take in, so it's 3 general elections you're going to be looking at, correct?
Yes, Senator, so we could get on track for this bill. So this bill gives you 2 years back. So we have to come up to 2018. After this is implemented, it go 2022 and 2020. So we'll be doing that in 2023 or 2024. So we have to come up to 2018, but we just wanted to give the numbers. And as I stated, that these numbers are in the 2018 numbers because they're showing on the list as registered voters. And when you take out this first 4,000, you might end up having 2,000 in 2018. It'll be less. This is the base because it's way back to 2014.
Okay. I do agree with President Molinar that more educational outreach needs to be done to the voters. More educational outreach needs to be done to get persons eligible to register to vote to actually vote. And so in that, I wanted to ask Dr. Molinar, what partnerships do you, as the president of the league and your organization, see that you could be working with the Board of Elections and the election system to increase the amount of persons who are on our registered voters, and for them definitely to become active voters?
Well, thank you for that question, Senator. The League won a small grant from the National Organization of the League of Women Voters to do outreach to new citizens. And that is a project that we have taken really very, very seriously. Before the pandemic, we participated in all of the immigration ceremonies where people became new citizens, and we passed out literature with the consent, of course, of the presiding judge. We passed out literature to the new citizens, encouraging them to vote, giving them information about why they should vote, where they should vote, and what kind of materials they needed to take to the voting. Because of the pandemic, these immigration ceremonies have not been taking place in the public, and we've had a setback there. But once they resume, we're going to resume that effort as well. So that has been a big project for us. We're really very proud of. Secondly, as I indicated earlier, we have a program where we plan to go back into the schools. We have begun that effort where we're going to talk about to the 18-year-olds why they should vote and how they should vote. We have had a good relationship with the election system, and I want to thank Ms. Fox for overseeing that. We have offered our efforts to assist with registration of individuals, and election system has cooperated. But as I had said before, we look for the opportunity to do more of it, but we're only limited really by the availability of members of the board who can be there while we're doing the registration. We did a big reach at the University of the Virgin Islands campus on St. Thomas, and elections told us that that was one of the largest successful programs that they had in registering people, and we got a certificate from the board commending the league for registering the largest number of people at a registration event. So we continue to offer our services to the board and to the election system wherever we can help. We have to do so.
And thank you for that. I do recall vividly persons, representative from the League of Women Voters being at those naturalization ceremonies. They were very active, and they had on their shirts encouraging individuals to go and register. And I know typically the system sees an upsurge of registered voters after a naturalization ceremony. Thank you so much, Dr. Molinar, for your comments and for answering the question. Senator Kenneth Gittens, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, can I get a point of clarification and a point of information first? I've been trying to get that, but I know we're in 2 different districts, so it's a little difficult.
Senator Gittens, if you could go ahead and ask your questions, I think it could be all rolled up in one.
So you're denying my point of clarification and information, ma'am?
Because it's your turn, Senator Gittens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The point of clarification to Supervisor Fox. On page 3 of your testimony, you spoke about the mandate to the statement below explains the process of the office of the supervisor will conduct. And you stated that the name of any elector whose registration has been changed to inactive shall be posted forthwith territorially in 3 places, such as the U.S. Post Office, Water and Power Authority, Bulletin Board, and an election system. Where did this came from, this man?
The information, sir, we use what we used to do with the cancellation of voters. So the cancellation of voters, we posted them in the post office. When I came on board in 2014, I worked with Water and Power Authority. They allowed us to post them in their buildings. And then the website came on board in 2014, so that too became new. But this was cancellation of voters were posted in these places prior.
So the clarity is this is something that you used to do. This isn't something that this bill is requiring at this time. And that's why I wanted the clarity. And my point of information was that the question asked by the good Vice President regarding of the casting of lots, we're also addressing that, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that forward shortly. But the supervisor of elections is also saying that a number of jurisdictions don't use numbers, just use names. However, we must come to grips that we still have small bit of our population that does not read well, and they utilize the numerical system. So hence why we did not move to remove the numbers from the ballots. Now, I must say that there's a term used in other jurisdictions which is called a list maintenance, and this is the process used by many other jurisdictions to keep their voter registrations accurate and up to date. And keeping the voter registration list accurate and current is critical to actually holding efficient and secured elections. So we know for sure that we want people to be able to trust in the process, and it starts where? With the actual registry, which is the first. Now, question to you, Ms. Fox, Supervisor Fox. A move from Christiansted to Frederiksted may require a simple update in your voter registration database, correct?
Yes, Senator. Any address change is updated.
Right. Right. So my other flip side to that is whether or not a move from St. Thomas to St. Croix, and I think my good friend attorney Molinar, sorry about that, had alluded to it, I think. But my actual question would be a move from St. Thomas to St. Croix or either district will require an actual cancellation of a previous registration, yes or no?
It's called a transfer. It's called a transfer, Senator. It's not a cancellation. A transfer from one district.
So it will be a transfer. Now, I believe that most people understand the importance of our election system having such tracking system in place in order to keep track of changes in registration. So my question to you is, does incarceration for criminal convictions render a voter ineligible to vote?
Senator, the voter is suspended. Yeah. One of the drop downs that we have, suspended.
So currently it is suspended?
Yes, Senator.
So they're ineligible to vote. So yes. The answer is yes.
Yes, Senator.
What about adjudication of mental incompetence?
If we get a court ruling, that voter will not be able to vote. So they will be, the board will have to cancel them or put them in another category. But right now we only have.
So that's.
Go ahead, son.
Great. So that sends me into my next question: whether or not you there is a good relationship between you, meaning your office, that is, and the courts.
Yes, Senator.
And lastly, do you keep track of death certificates or the death records?
Yes, Senator. We get that quarterly from the Department of Health, and we check those persons off, and that's under removable. So there's different, like I said, categories: active, inactive, suspension, removable, other.
Okay, thank you. And hence our continued work on the revisions of Title 18. I must note to my colleagues that although we're amending this section to add the inactive versus inactive, I also want you to notice that in the previous language of this section 10, as it speaks in subsection B and D, there's mentions of the Board of Elections and their responsibility. And what we're actually doing is transferring a number of these day-to-day operations from the board to the supervisor of elections, where it should be, which will actually allow, I'm getting a feedback, which would actually allow for there to be a grievance process, that if something, if someone has a grievance, at the first step, they go to the supervisor. If they don't agree with what the supervisor is saying, then it is invoked to the board before it goes to the courts. But currently, all challenges now go straight to courts because our Board of Elections is who have a lot of these day-to-day operational functions. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the testifiers, and looking forward to completing these revisions. Thank you. A special thank you, Ms. Molnar, for continuing to stay with, and we'll must echo the Vice President that we'll miss Attorney Brady as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator Gittins. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you have a point of inquiry?
Thank you. Point of inquiry to the chair to Supervisor Fox. I'm not sure if I had missed this because I had stepped out for a few moments. On page 2 of this piece of legislation, line 17, what I'm trying to find out is when it speaks to it, I just, let me see if I could read it quickly. It says, on this form, you must affirm that you continue to reside at the address at which you are registered, have moved within the same district, or have moved to another district within the Virgin Islands. Your registration status will be reinstated to active once you complete the voting process. Is anything going to interfere with filling out this form if, for example, you move from one house to another? Because what this is saying, you have to affirm basically that you're at the same location. And I don't want anything written here that could potentially stop someone from voting. So if they fill out the form and the information is not identical to what we're requesting here, would that potentially stop them from being able to vote?
No, Senator. That would mean that they will come into our office after the election and update their database. But they'll be allowed to vote at the site, similar to what we do now with the nomination process. If an address is incorrect, we give them 3 days to bring in the documents to update, which you're going to have to bring at least a WAPA bill, because we don't want folks just coming and changing their address willy-nilly. So you have to prove documentation. So you're going to allow to vote, and then you'll update your address, but it triggers you to come to our office.
Yeah, because I was a little concerned how it's written, because it says you must affirm. That means it has to be identical. So I didn't know if that would have triggered any issues for you, because, you know, once this is set in stone, it's the law.
Correct. But
Okay.
But also, like I'm saying, remember now they got 2 processes you could do, either the ballot or provisional. So you're still gonna be allowed to vote. That's the main point. So if we can't confirm, you won't do a ballot, but you do the provisional, and it'll be checked. And you can come in and make sure you update your address, so you'll get to vote anyway.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger. As senators, we have exhausted all of our time on this measure. If there isn't any other burning questions, Senator Gittins, you have any other burning questions that you would need to ask, or any other member present need to ask? This is the time. Senator Gittins, I see. Kindly recognize Senator Gittins' mic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question is to my colleagues, and ask for your support in moving this measure forward. And a number of these election reforms are very time sensitive. So I'm just here to humbly ask for your support so we could move this measure forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Gittins. At this time, I will ask our testifiers to present a 30-second wrap-up. I afford you that time. Supervisor Fox, we will begin with you.
Again, thank you, Chairwoman Senator Joseph, and the opportunity to testify in support of this bill. As I stated, we would like to implement 30 days after the governor's signature. Again, this is one that's not impacting voting day. And of course, we'll do the education process to make sure the information is out to the public. Thank you.
Dr. Molinar, you are recognized for your 30 seconds wrap-up.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters is delighted to have been asked, and we are very much in support of the bill. We stress the importance of education for the bill. May I make just one correction? Senator Gittins referred to me as Attorney Molinar. My sister is Attorney Molinar. I wouldn't want that mistake to be made. She's the attorney, not I.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, we have exhausted all of our time on two pieces of legislation before our committee today. I want to also thank our testifiers for coming forward today and presenting testimony and giving us a thorough assessment on the bill that is before us, Bill 34-0230. At this time, I will release you from your testimony and presentation before the Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection. And again, we thank you so much for taking time today to be in attendance.
Thank you.
Motion.
Senator Novell E. Francis Jr., you're recognized for your motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and colleagues. I move that Bill number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to the registration of electors, to require the supervisor of elections to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with general election in 2022, be favorably approved by the Committee of Government Operations and Consumer Protection and sent to the full body for further consideration. I so move.
Senator, is it the full body or to rules? Kindly restate your motion.
Thank you. That'll be going to the Rules Committee, Madam Chair. So I'll just restate. Bill number 34-0230, an act. I move that Bill number 34-0230, an act amending Title 18 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to the registration of electors, to require the supervisor of elections to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days of each general election, starting with the general election of 2022, be favorably approved by the Committee of Government Operations and Consumer Protection and sent to the Rules and Judiciary Committee for further vetting. I so move.
Second.
Bill number 34-0230 has been properly moved and by Senator Novell E. Francis Jr. and seconded by Senator Franklin D. Johnson. Roll call on Bill number 34-0230.
Senator Marvin A. Blyden. Senator Blyden, yea. Senator Novell E. Francis Jr.
Yay.
Senator Francis Jr., yea. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. Yes. Senator Francis Heiliger, yea. Senator Javon E. James Sr. Senator James Sr. absent. Senator Franklin D. Johnson. Senator Johnson absent.
Yay.
One moment.
Yay.
Senator Johnson, yea. Senator Carla J. Joseph.
Not voting.
Senator Joseph not voting. Senator Milton E. Potter. Senator Potter absent. Madam Chair, you have 4 yea, 2 absent, 1 not voting.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Bill number 34-020, an act amending Title 18 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 5, Section 110, relating to the registration of electors, to require the supervisor of election to compile an active versus inactive voters list within 90 days after each general election, starting with the general election in 2022, has been properly moved and will be forwarded to the Committee on Rules and Judiciary for further consideration and action. Motion, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger.
Thank you. Thank you. I move that Bill number 34-0212 be voted on favorably, oh Lord. I move that Bill number 34-01, I am reading my whole thing wrong today. I'm sorry. I move that bill number 34-0212. Yes, I am. Bill number 34-0212, an act amending Title 28, Chapter 29, Section 660 of the Virgin Islands Code to include additional requirements for the notice and publication of lists of abandoned property, be voted on favorably by this committee and forwarded to the Committee on Rules and the Judiciary for further consideration. I so move.
Bill number 34-0212 has been properly moved by Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, seconded by Senator Marvin A. Blyden, and I believe also seconded by Senator Novell E. Francis.
Yeah.
Roll call on bill number 34-0212.
Senator Marvin A. Blyden. Senator Blyden, yea. Senator Novell E. Francis Jr.
Yay.
Senator Francis Jr., yea. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. Senator Francis Heiliger, yea. Senator Javon E. James Sr. Senator James Sr. absent. Senator Franklin D. Johnson.
Yay.
Senator Johnson, yea. Senator Carla J. Joseph.
Yes.
Senator Joseph, yea. Senator Milton E. Potter. Senator Potter absent. Madam Chair, you have 5 yea and 2 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bill number 34-0212, an act amending Title 28, Chapter 29, Section 660 of the Virgin Islands Code to include additional requirements for the notice and publication of lists of abandoned property has been properly moved and favorably voted upon in this committee and will be forwarded to the Committee on Rules and Judiciary for further action and consideration. Senator Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your point of personal privilege.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. First, I just would like to thank my colleagues for their full support of this piece of legislation. It is a piece of legislation that is going to benefit the people of this territory as it relates to them being able to tap into getting information for their unclaimed funds. I hope as this moves through the process, we will get an overall number as to what the total amount of unclaimed funds we have here in the territory, in hopes of being able to allow for people to be able to get these monies disbursed back to them. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for the time, and thanks again to my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Colleagues, we have exhausted our agenda today. It was one of the most abbreviated agenda before the Committee on Government Operation and Consumer Protection. And before we leave out for today, I want to really thank everyone for your attendance and your participation. I also would like to thank my staff for their hard work in putting all of this activity and today's meeting together. Also thank the central staff who has been here from the get-go, getting everything ready and prepared for today's meeting. The Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection meeting for Thursday, June 16, 2022 is hereby adjourned.